looks like a pretty small table tonight because we got a lot of people on the challenge table, which is great. Let me get into our announcements for this month, which are very similar to many months. We'd like to thank all the members and folks that contributed time and talents to the First Fridays events this past year. We've hit the last one this month. So the next one won't happen until April 4th of 2025. Overall, I'd say these events were not as successful as we'd hoped in regards to getting people into the shop, but we did learn some things, and we'll continue to talk through how we can improve that for next year. But we will be involved with it next year as well. Wondering, just by show of hands, did you attend the Woodworkers Guild 40th anniversary open house? So we got a few in here that did. They had a demonstration tour of the shop. I think they had an ice cream social at one point. So it was a nice little event. I think that was last Saturday, Ed, or 2 Saturdays ago? 2 Saturdays ago. Okay. Just to announce, we have 110 members as of October 1st. We gained about 4 new members last month. Like to remind everybody to support the club tonight by purchasing one of the beautiful ready-to-turn bowl blanks that donated by Don Frank, and also by entering into the dollar sweepstakes, where again we'll receive 2 $10 Woodcraft gift certificates. This month's challenge drawing winner will get their choice of either 2 3D printed threaded inserts, which we've had up there before, or a multi-angle gauge for a grinder platform. I'll show you what that is. So this is the grinder platform gauge, and basically you put it on the platform of your grinder and put this up against the wheel, and you can set it to several different preset degrees. So nice little product. This is the insert, so you get your choice of 2 of these or this. And that'll be our challenge winner tonight. This is the month that we present to the club our slate of officers that we've got for next year. You're not going to notice any change. I'm going to take on, this is hopefully my last year, but I want to take another year as president. And Mike Thomas has agreed to take on another year of vice president, which is a heavy responsibility in the sense of trying to line up all the demos and stuff for the year. So help Mike out if you've got any ideas there. And our treasurer will once again be Kevin Neely. And our secretary position is being rounded off or co-sponsored, I guess, or co-ran. It's Elizabeth and Calvin Wright, and Elizabeth's been standing in for Calvin while he's going through his medical classes. So he's been quite busy. Our at-large members are going to be pretty much the same. It would be Sue Bergstrom, Mike Erickson. I don't see Mike out here today. Ed Jasic, Anthony Harris. Everybody knows Anthony. He's over there. Bill Paulo, who I don't see tonight, but most people know Bill. And Ann Molina, who some of you know and some of you don't, but she zooms in from the Texas club. She's also a member of our club, but she's living down in Texas right now. And Ann's great to share ideas and things that her club are doing that might improve our club. And we kind of share back and forth that way. So that's very helpful. And I got to see her in person about a month ago, and that was really fun. I hadn't seen her for a while. She's zooming in tonight. Hi, Ann.
Hi, guys.
And so next month, we'll just be voting to confirm the officers, and that'll take place in the November meeting. If there are any challenges to that, if anybody wants to be president, just hold your hand up and I'll come give you the microphone right now and my notes. But it's a very fulfilling job, and I don't want to scare anybody away from the idea of taking on the presidency. It gets you to know everybody, almost every member in the club. It gets you deep into how the club functions, how we can stay alive and stay afloat. So it's a good position to have. Open shop available every Saturday morning from 8:30 to 12 p.m. or later. Wednesday and Thursday evenings from 6 to 9 p.m. except for the third Wednesday of each month, which is the guild meeting. So we don't hold our open shop during the guild meeting. If you're using the shop, help keep it clean. Ending your cleanup with a vacuum is always helpful and works real well. For those that don't know, the building security system is now active. If you happen to show up for open shop and the front doors are locked, it may be because we're the only ones here and we're in the shop, but there's a doorbell on the back door. Ring the doorbell. There's 3 different ringers in there so that we can hear them now. Somebody will come and let you in if they are in. Well, this is true because somebody did ring the doorbell and okay. Yeah, try to handle it. It might be open. If you have not done so already, we've got a waiver form that's in the bowl back there in the shop. If you're using the shop, we'd like you to have a waiver form signed. It's our way of getting some emergency contact information. So it's helpful if you are in the shop, please do so. Also, if you're using the shop, please report any problems with the equipment. We'll do our best as a board to try to get them taken care of. I think we had a handle that broke off one of the Delta machines, and you can see a wrench that's secured on it now because we couldn't find the right handle to get back on there, but it does function and works fine. So, and just a reminder, take advantage of open shop days and nights because there's not a better opportunity to learn and grow and see other projects and see people doing and taking on different projects. So you can really improve your skills by attending the open shop. I failed to get this on our PowerPoint, but I did have a note in my notes that the next shop cleanup will be November 16th. That's a Saturday, and it'll be the Saturday right prior to the Santa's workshop. So we'll get the place looking good for Santa's workshop event. Help wanted. We're always looking for help. If you want to be president, talk to me, especially in 2026. Yeah. If you have tools that are in good condition, but you just don't want, need, or use them anymore, consider donating them to the club. It can help the club and help clean up your shop. We do still need some additional openers for the open shop to help support. I think David, Alexander, and Anthony cover most of the times, but we can definitely use some additional shop openers. So if you're using the open shop, you think it's something that you could commit to, please talk to me or talk to one of the board members and we'll get you lined up. Phil Sykes, hold your hand up, Phil, has been posting our club content on an Instagram account, as well as Instagram and what else? Facebook. He can only post what he has as far as content. So as you guys are working through a project or something that you're really proud of, take a few pictures of it, shoot Phil an email with pictures and a little description on what you do, and he'll put a blurb out there for us. And it not only will it'll help the club out just by exposure, and that's really what our online activities are all about, trying to get more people to see that we're here and what we do. Finally, as far as the help wanted, if you have any ideas about a demonstration you'd like to share, or even if you've got some ideas on a demonstration you'd like to see, talk to Mike Thomas. He's getting his 2025 calendar set up right now, and he is actively looking for demonstrators. So seriously, it doesn't have to be January. It can be down in the line. Think about that. It helps the club out a lot. January's booked, so you got to tell at least February. Upcoming activities and events for the club. We've got a skill builder event David, hold your hand up. David Alexander is going to go through the process of changing the blade on the Powermatic bandsaw back there, and also kind of talk about some general cleaning and maintenance that is necessary. So if you haven't never seen that done or ever wondered how that is done, it'll be a great opportunity to see that happen. It's free to all members. It's going to be Saturday, October 26th from 11 a.m. to probably around 12, but as long as it takes. And then following that, if there's some interest, I'd like a show of hands if you would be interested in a skill builder on chainsaw cleaning and sharpening. This would be around November 16th. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there may be some interest. Yeah. So we're looking at a November 16th date to possibly do that. We haven't set the exact time. David said it might take a little bit more time than the bandsaw blade skill builder. So we'll work that out and we'll get that information to you. But it sounds like there's enough of you got an interest in that it'd be worth our while to show that. Our November demonstration will be by Bill Paulo, and it'll be on wood stabilization. So if you've ever had any questions on that or wonder what the heck that means, come by and see the demonstration in November. Anthony is going to be offering a hands-on class for turning Christmas ornaments Saturday and Sunday, November 9th and 10th from 12:30 to 4:30. You get to learn a skill while you create a gift for Christmas. So it's a fun class. He's offered them before, so we're hoping that we get a full class there in November. Anthony's going to follow that up in early 2025 with a hollowing class. And I think he talked about possibly following the hollowing class up with a spoon turning class. A spoon scoop turning class. So we got something lined up if you're interested in taking a class and improving your skills. The club, I think we've talked about several weeks or several months now. The club has been producing batons for the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department. There may be some opportunities down the line here this next month or two to help sand and finish these batons. So keep your eyes out for an email. But big thanks to Mike and Gary. Gary, I don't see him here tonight. He's out of the country right now, but he is set up the CNC programming for both a short stick and a long stick, and has that pretty nailed down now. So we're down to now producing the final results. I think, Mike, you said you gave some of them to the department for a fundraiser.
They call it Crime Commission fundraiser, and they were delighted. Short, it looks like and basically Kevin burned the low and the high. So the option was not one in 2 weeks because they're fundraising luncheon, and then they have another event down at the Chief Stadium, Pearl City, in November.
So this is a relationship that we're really excited to kind of create because of a potential $1 under $5,000 donation that they can give to our club on an annual basis if we can produce batons for them. So it's going to very much help our club out. But we don't expect Mike and Gary to do all the work and Kevin to do all the work. So if we have an opportunity for a sanding day or a baton finishing day, we'll get that lined up. Okay. There will be a time when we need some help with the sanding and finishing. The email probably go out when we know what exactly we're set up for and how many people we need. We are doing Santa's workshop again this year. Those that have been involved with that before know that it's a really fun event that gets kind of the community involvement, where we invite the community in for kind of an open house. There will be tables set up, I believe, in this area for items to sell, and then they'll be a production area back here and probably in one of the classrooms where the kids will go around and build a small truck. And then we'll probably lead them through our space and drill a hole in the back of the truck and put a top into it. So it's a fun, everybody has a good time kind of thing that really kind of exposes us to parts of the community that wouldn't normally know we existed. So that's a good thing. It's a great opportunity to introduce the club to our neighbors in the community. Say that? It has not been officially announced, but it's usually the Saturday and Sunday before Thanksgiving. So I'm waiting to hear that for sure. That one less static. Okay, I'm changing mics. Hopefully get rid of some of that static. Yeah, it worked. The annual holiday party is going to take place in place of our December meeting, as always. That'll be December 2nd from 7 p.m. till whenever we decide to leave. We're trying to save a little bit of money, so we're going to be having an entirely potluck meal this year. So we'll be looking for a few member volunteers to provide some entrees for the night, and the rest of the members then will bring salads, sides, and desserts. If you might be interested in volunteering to bring an entree, see myself or Kevin, and we'll get you lined up. I don't think we've put together what exactly we're trying to come up with as our. There will be poppers. That will be December 2nd. It'll take place of our, oh, excuse me. That's not right. It'll be the December 9th. I got it wrong in my notes. It takes the place of our December meeting. So it's the second Monday in December. I apologize. That's December 9th. Just keep your eyes out for emails from the club. At least glance through them, because sometimes there's information on upcoming events and activities that you might be interested in. Sometimes it seems like we get a lot of them, but usually they're a quick read and you can see if you're interested very quick. Also, if you're looking for project information, instructions, or ideas, we do have a library back there that has some resources for you that are worthwhile if you'd like to check them out. The best places to locate information regarding the club activities and the calendar and such would be our website, which is KCWoodturners.org. We also have a newsletter that comes out monthly that has some information in there and usually has a lot of the announcement notes and stuff in it. Or just simply ask one of the board members if our board members could hold their hands up. I think most of you know who we are, but any of us can help you out if you need. And that leads me to our safety minute that Phil Sykes is going to present.
Thanks, Chris. How's everybody doing tonight? We're going to talk about safety. I know that's shocking, isn't it? Last month, Bill Paulo mentioned to me that he had an incident with kickback, and he's supposed to bring in a belt buckle, but he didn't. Well, he's not here tonight. So Bill bringing his belt buckle, because he said it was like one of these, nice big, belt buckles made out of a nice piece of metal, and it's now bent in a very odd shape because he was working on a table saw one day, as we woodturners do infrequently, and he pinched a board, it gave it kickback, and it went right into his midsection down here. You can't really see it on the video down here, and that belt buckle was not here, was not there. It's possible that Bill might not be here either, because it would have hit him pretty hard. So kickback, if you don't know what it is generally what happens when a board or a piece of wood gets pinched in a saw blade. Most of the time it's on a table saw blade. That's the most common place where it can come from, but it can also come from a bandsaw. Bandsaw can kick back a couple different ways. It can come from a circular saw, usually some kind of saw that's moving very quickly and a board is going through it in some direction. As long as you're using those tools properly, you generally don't have any issues. But some safety precautions for using a table saw specifically to prevent kickback would be to use the riving knife or the splitting knife. Now, if you don't know what a riving knife is, those are on these new saws that have been made in the past decade and a half or so. They go up and down with the blade. They're behind the blade. So when you push your board through, your board goes on either side of that riving knife, and it can't pinch the blade in the back, because that's one of the ways that a board will kick back. If it pinches, if your board flexes and pinches in the back, it'll kick right back at you that direction. Oh, this is a good one. Never make freehand cuts. Who's ever made a freehand cut on a table saw? Really, Rob? Really? I'm going to give you this when I get back there, just so you can read it a little more closely. Never make freehand cuts with a table saw. Always use the board up against a fence or on a miter gauge or on a sled, some sort of apparatus that is helping to guide that board straight, because table saws cut straight. Band saws can cut circles. Table saws cut straight. So let's always use some type of reference point when we're using a table saw. Do not cross cut with the rook fence. Now, if you don't know what a rook fence is on a table saw, look next to Anthony and you see where my microphone is sitting. My old microphone, the pink one. That is that's your fence. Now, what we're talking about is if you take a board going that direction and try to push it up against the fence and then push it this way, that's not a good idea, because what can happen is that little board that you cut off can get caught between the blade and the fence, and then again, kick right back at you. Could hit you in the face, could hit you in the stomach, chest, anywhere else there. So when you making a crosscut, use a miter gauge, which is useful for crosscuts, or use a crosscut sled, where you will not be pinching it between the blade and the fence. Using a push stick. How many of you own a push stick? If you don't own a push stick, go in your backyard, break a stick off of a tree, and now you have a push stick. A push stick can be very simple. You can also go to Woodcraft and spend like $60 on one if you really want to. But the idea is to keep your hands away from the blade and to help push a piece of material through. You want to, again, use that push stick in the proper way, usually on the middle of the board. If you don't know how to use a push stick, I would recommend looking it up, because my minute is already passed. Do not cut crooked stock. Now, how many people have been at Home Depot lately and seen the 2x4s they sell? Okay. Don't cut those on a table saw, or at least try not to. But if you see a board that is severely warped and it's not going to be sitting flat on your table, you want to go over to your jointer, you want to flatten it, and go to your planer, flatten the other side, and then you're ready to go to the table saw. If you don't own a jointer or a planer, this is the Woodworkers Guild as well as the Woodturners Guild, and they can teach you how to do that. But if you have a board that's crooked, the table saw is not a good tool to use to cut it. A bandsaw would actually be better, right? I think so. As long as it lays flat on the table. And obviously be attentive. And if you don't feel you're at your best, if you're a little tired, it's been a long day, especially if you're working on the table saw is I think the most dangerous tool in the shop for people, because it's the one tool that a lot of people have, and they think they know how to use it, and it can very easily and very quickly change your life. We're luckily we have saw stops here in the shop, most of them, not all of them. A saw stop is a great saw, again, as long as you use it properly. If you turn the safety off the saw stop, then it's just a regular old table saw at that point. So please use the safety precautions built into your saw. Practice them, be familiar with them, and make sure you're in a good mood to go ahead and use a table saw to avoid kickback and avoid a hospital visit. That's all I have.
Thanks, Phil. Okay, so tonight we have the pleasure of having our very own member top turner, top guy. Been turning tops for how many years, Jerry? 15, 20 years, and given probably over 100,000 of them away. So he's been doing it for a while. It's a fun activity. He's found all kinds of different ways to decorate and different types of tops and things that he'll be showing us tonight. Our challenge after Jerry gets done will end up being turning some tops and potentially donating them towards the Santa's workshop. But I do want to note that there's a box full of dowels, and everybody that's here can take one dowel. It'll make about 6 to 7 different blanks for you to start up and turn your own or create your own spinning tops. So without any further ado, let me introduce Mr. Jerry Darter, and he's going to bring us through a demonstration on spinning and decorating tops. Thank you,
Chris.
Jerry.
We're going to use. So back. Shoulder and clip it on. Are we on? Good. Are we still on? Good deal. All right. Tops. As Chris mentioned, I've been doing it for quite a while. Everybody in the club kind of considers me, and I haven't been that active for a while, but considers me a top turner. I consider myself a bow turner. That's really what I started out doing. But at some point in time, maybe about the 10-year mark or something like that, you sort of saturate your market if you're a bow turner. And your family don't want to open the door when you get there. You know, they kind of check your hands before they do that. So anyway, years ago, a family that I knew that lived in the Roanoke area, they volunteered down at Ronald McDonald House. And they were actually down at, he was in the Woodworkers Guild, and they were down at one of the events over at the other clubhouse. And they saw some of my tops there. I guess we were selling things maybe. And she bought those, and then she asked me later on if I'd consider that she volunteered at Children's Mercy Hospital, not Children's Mercy, Ronald McDonald House, and wondered if I would turn some tops and donate them to them down there. And I said, sure I would. So we kind of got started off like that. Then they retired and moved to Florida. Another person picked us up down there, but it continued for probably about 10 years. And then the pandemic hit and things kind of changed. And I can understand that. You don't want to take a chance bringing something in to that environment. They got enough trouble already. So anyway, we've turned tops. We have some of our original club top turners here, Judy Chestnut. Let's see, Larry Dice is here. He's on the top team. Ed J, right here. Let's see, Phil Royer and Anthony Harris.
Am I official now?
You're not official. You're still, no, you're not official. Mike Erickson. Oh, and our newest member, Chris Coyne over here. I'm naming them because sometimes you need people to show up, and they show up, and they do a great job actually. But now, let's see, we turned at the tool show. My gosh, we turned out at Deanna Rose at their fall festival in the fall. We turned in a lot of different places. And now I think we're down to the Irish Fest and the Discovery Center, which is run by the Missouri Conservation Department. Wonderful facility. If you haven't been down there, it's great. They have organized programs, plus just walk in and lots of things to do and see down there. That takes place, I think, in the spring of the year, late winter, spring, something, February. So anyway, I say this just to mention, if you've ever thought you might want to be on the top team or you want to learn how to turn tops, and tonight don't quite get the job done, then you're welcome to join us. We're pretty inclusive. The history of tops. I don't know. I ran across this book several years ago. It's called The Top. Not sure. Yeah, The Top. And it was written in 1973, but I think it's still probably pretty valid. It just talks about tops around the world and the different cultures that have tops. And it talks about here, they're primarily a children's toy, but in many locations, like for example, Southeast Asia, Vietnam and so forth, Laos and so forth, Malaysia, It's an adult sport and one where money changes hands, I think. And tops can range up to 30 or 40 pounds, and it's a two-man deal or a two-person deal, excuse me, where one actually holds the top and the other guy takes off with the rope. And I don't know what happens after that, but I think it's a pretty serious deal. So if you want to look through this book, it's going to be up here also. Some of the tools that you might need, it just depends on how much into top turning you want to be. But on the lathe here now, we have a Jacobs chuck with a what I call a choke in there. If you've ever had a shotgun and hunting quail or something like that, you know you have to have a choke in there. You can only have so many bullets. That keeps the dowel rod from going way up in there. You don't need that to hold something this small. So it's about halfway. On the other end, we have a live center with the point removed. So it's like a one way, and I think there's 2 or 3 other varieties out there now. They all would work. But the 3/8 dowel rod that you use will securely go right up in there and hold your chuck blank or your top blank very nicely. Okay. The colored pens that we use, if you're turning for children, they're not too much into exotic woods and beautiful woods and those kinds of things. They want the bright and the colorful things. So any kind of pen that has a permanent type ink in it, I think would work. And even that's a misnomer. If they get wet, they're gonna fade, but probably not as much. And heck, when we're out turning at these children's events, we don't have time to put on a finish and have that dry and so forth. So you're handing a child it's dry, but if they get wet, it might get on their shirt or something like that. In years past, when we first started turning at Deanna Rose and so forth, we would use a thick viscous paint like this 3D fabric paint, which is good stuff, but it takes about 10 or 15 minutes to dry. And we would turn the top and hand it to the 5-year-old and say, now don't get that on your clothing. And then at some point in time, we figured out, hey, we probably really shouldn't be doing that. And so we went to the type of top. They just eliminated that and started putting the texture on there. Still is a fairly nice looking top. Now let's see here. At the display table, we have different tops that I've made over the years. Most of them will spin in here. If you're not familiar with this one, I need to come back here, Donna. It's called a tippy top. And it will start out spinning on this part, but before the spin is over, it will completely invert and spin on this part. Now, I want you to tell me which direction it's going when it inverts. I'm not sure if that changes or not, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't. But it makes for a lively discussion. Yeah. This works most of the time. There we go. So you can see it's kind of cool. Really one of my favorite tops. You know, we all go through different experiences in our lives, and one of mine was in the military, in the Navy, and I worked with the International Morse Code. And so, you know, I put that on this top. And does anybody else here know the International Morse Code? So if I tell you that this says something it doesn't, you're not going to know that. You're not going to, okay. Actually, it says family. And then it's got a burned picture of a man and a wife and a small child. I thought that's kind of cool. So you can express those kinds of things. If your children or your grandchildren are into soccer, I found a stamp online that you can just stamp your blank, get it nice and smooth and just stamp it with a soccer ball. And, that might be kind of cool for those involved in soccer. And I think more and more people are involved in soccer. Used to know this guy named Steve Mertz, and he was the soccer commissioner in Johnson County. I was with Parks and Recreation in Kansas City, Missouri. And Mr. Mertz would come out every week, every Friday, and he would mow an area down by the boathouse completely with a little push mower. And every time he came out, he would say, Jerry, he says, soccer is going to be huge in this country someday. You just wait and see. It'll be better than football. Well, I'm not quite sure if it's quite as popular as football yet, but it sure gained a lot in the years since he would tell us that. Let's see. Here's one made with just colored pins glued or epoxied together and slices made across them. It was put into some kind of a mold, probably, I don't know, probably a polyester mold of some sort or another. You're only limited by your imagination. This is one that's supposed to spin and whistle. Well, it spins okay, but whistle it does not do. And so we all have some of those kinds of things. I don't know. Here's, different sizes. I've got some at home. I didn't bring them that are much larger than this that require some sort of a launcher to make them work. A witch. Maybe I'll bring this over here. Oh, you do have me. Okay. But we'll see if we can. Really, when you're doing a demo, you should never do anything if you're not pretty sure what's going to happen. But, you can see. Sometimes you get real bored up in the shop. I don't know what happened, but I put a handle on each end. It still spins. These things are pretty forgiving. Here's one that I really wanted to show you. Y'all remember, I know you do, Sean McMahon. I made this, and you've seen these children's toys that has a little helicopter and you pull a little string and the little dowel rod and the four blades go up and it spins and goes down. I thought, I wonder if you could do one of those with a top. And you can. Just by pulling this, if I did it, it would shoot out of there. So anyway, I took this to Sunday school over at Woodcraft one morning. And I said, Sean looked at it. He says, Jerry, I think I'd like to make one of those. I said, okay, Sean, that's great. It's an outside toy. Do not try to spin it in your house. Next week, Sean shows back up looking kind of sad. He made it. It flew in his house, went up and hit the ceiling, went over and hit his big screen TV and cracked it. If you decide to, this stuff will be up here at halftime. But if you decide to do something like this, do not. It's an outside toy. And literally it will go 25, 30 feet in the air and 30 or 40 feet down, down depending on which way you aim it. You can kind of aim it a little bit. I have no idea why I made this one. I don't remember. It's pretty elaborate, but all it does is spin like all the other tops. I was obviously trying to impress somebody. All right. Here's what that one could look like. Here's an ant with a top for his hat. I don't know. I don't know why. I guess because you can. Actually, I've got several other hats that'll fit him. One's a Santa's hat and one's an Easter egg and on, you know. Whose top is this?
It's like mine.
Is that yours? Here's one I made. It looks like a bowl. It is, but it's also a top. And if you're lucky, you can get it to spinning. Not fast, but you can imagine this on the holiday table. Oh, we're gonna. You don't want it to. You want it to be pretty well balanced. If you had this on your holiday table and the biscuits or the rolls are on this end and somebody on the other end wants one. It could do it. Yeah, it would. Okay, so there we go. Heads up. I don't know where it's going to go, honestly. Oh, well, we won't worry about that biscuit. This one, kind of a magic wand top. It's got a little piece of metal here, probably a nail right through, little magnet in the end. You know, the little kids are pretty impressed with that. You all remember the artist Christo that wrapped the walkways over in Loose Park with that golden cloth? I was with Parks and Recreation at the time, and we ended up with miles of that stuff. And we hauled it out to the parking lot at Swope Park, the Starlight Theater parking lot. And we told everybody in town, I mean, come out, bring your scissors and take all you want, you know, because I mean, my gosh, we had lots of it. And then a lot of people did come out and get it. And I took a little bit of it home myself. And I thought, well, I'm going to make any of that a top, and I'm going to wrap it with the Christo cloth. I'm still working on that one. That's a work in progress. That's been working on for now about 2 years. Not every day, but every once in a while. And I don't know. The cloth itself was kind of loosely wrapped. And so I'm trying to figure out if anybody has any ideas at halftime, I would appreciate them. I need it to be kind of wrinkled out in here and kind of glued down on the edge, I think. So if you have some ideas on how something like that might work. We talked about those tippy tops. And one of the things I got to wondering was, you know, how big a one can you make? We can make those little ones and they'll invert pretty well. So I thought, well, I wonder, and I made this one. And that's not, I did not pull that nearly fast enough, but it will work, and we'll get it to work. Well, you ain't seen nothing yet. I'm not going to spin this one, but I'll tell you about it. After I did that one, I thought, well, I'm just going to kind of take those dimensions and I'm just going to proportionately increase them and make a really big tippy top. And so I did, and I took this down to the kitchen floor from my shop, and I spun it, and it went over, and it hit the oven, and made a rather loud noise. It careened across the floor and bounced off of the refrigerator, and then went the other way and bounced off the wall and left a small dent. At which time my wife arrives on the scene. Kay, normally a very nice person, but in a very pretty stern voice, she says, "Jerry, put that back in the shop." So I haven't really tried it since, but I honestly think it would work if you had the proper location to spin it. Maybe at halftime we'll give it a go over there. All right. Well, you can kind of see tops are fun. Some of the tools that I have used over time, I fancy myself a tomato farmer. I try to grow tomatoes at home in my garden. So I made a tool handle with a tomato on the end of it. Others, this was a wood called Ziziphus jujuba, or Chinese date. And when I was graduating from college, I potted up a walnut acorn and I potted up an oak acorn and maybe some pecans and brought them home to Mom from Texas Tech, which we now call Patrick Mahomes University. Anyway, when I got back from the service, she had this thing growing that was real stickery. And my brothers hated it because they had to mow around it. And it was this wood, the Ziziphus jujuba. And when my mom and dad were both gone, my brothers quickly took a saw and sawed that tree down. They brought me the wood and said, "It's yours, Jerry." So I kept it around for a while, and I thought, well, I love my tools, so I think I'll make a tool handle with it. And honestly, it made a great tool handle. That one and this one both. Well, and this is it also. So you can make your handles out of what I would call sentimental woods. It's a wood that means something to you from maybe a plant that means something to you, and then when it's gone, you can still enjoy it. This was made from in Texas. We have a wood called bodark. Up here, you call it Osage orange or hedge. It was a wood that was very useful on the farms and on the ranches early on to contain cattle and horses and so forth, either as a living hedge because of those darn thorns it has that kill you. If you've never walked into one, you'll never forget it. But anyway, it's a very dense and hard wood, and I think I call it America's ebony. Anthony don't quite buy that, but it's a beautiful wood. It's a good wood to work with. If you have never tried the Osage orange, or if you want to be cool and call it bodark, that would be great. This would, it's just a darn good wood. You can also make other things out of it. The thing about it, once you cut it, you more or less have to cut it down the middle also, or it'll crack badly almost overnight. So you don't have long to do that. Here's really my favorite tool of the whole deal. This is again out of bodark. This is 360 brass. Does that sound right? I believe that's correct. It's a brass that you can work with your high-speed steel tools. So, I mean, this was all turned on my lathe, on my wood lathe. This was turned on my wood lathe. This has a tenon that goes back up in here about this far. And it's just a really cool tool handle. You can also use, I should have mentioned it, but this is an aluminum. Makes it a lot lighter tool. But really, when you first pick this up, and you can certainly come try it, you think, dang, that thing's heavy. But after you use it for a while, muscle memory or whatever, it just kind of becomes a lot easier to use. As I mentioned, we were going out to trip and turning tops for kids, so I tried to make a lot of them very colorful, something that they might enjoy. This is a texturing tool. And then several years ago, there's an auction company out in Belton, Mayo Auction Company. Maybe you've heard of it or maybe you haven't. They're pretty good size. They conduct these online auctions. And one day I'm looking on there and they had these are hip joints that they would implant in. I mean, I've got some others that are bigger. I don't know exactly what precipitate. I guess bigger people have bigger hip joints, maybe. Or maybe all people don't have equal hip joints. I don't know. But I got 4 or 5 of these. And several years ago, I thought, well, golly, I wonder if you could make a tool out of that. And so I ground off this, not much of a tool, but it's kind of like a skew, a skew or a parting tool or something like that. You can actually work. You can make a scratch on a piece of wood, that kind of thing. So what we're going to do, if there's any questions about any of this, we're going to turn 3 tops that I have turned over time. One of them, the first one will be this one that we used to turn with the painted spokes. I'll show you how that works. It's still a good top to turn. As I mentioned, there's a choke in there that keeps that from going all the way up. You see how that goes up in there? You don't need much. If you get in there too far, it's going to be harder than heck to get out. But what I do, I advance this first before I tighten this down firmly. And then when you cut this off, this will more or less be running evenly and not jumping around. I wanted to show you one other thing. I know I've got it if I can find it. You know, if you're not going to turn a bunch of tops, you might not want to invest in all of this. So I kind of invented this. It's a solid plastic bar. I think Anthony might have gave this to me. Just a solid piece of plastic, acrylic or something. Yeah, but it's going to be it's what you can use to hold your top blank on your lathe if you don't have, you know, a Jacob's chuck and with a Morse taper and this. So all it is a hole drilled in here, but it's a stopped hole because you don't want to force this all the way through. You want it only to go so far, and then you would mount your 4-jaw chuck on here and position the slit between the jaws so that when you compress them, when you close them down, then it will close, it will help, you know, this is what will actually encapsulate this. It works very well actually. So, you know, if you don't want all this, you can do this, and I do recommend that.
Chuck, what did you make the choke out of?
It's just a piece of dowel rod smaller than this. Yeah, it has to be smaller than this, because if it's the same size, believe me, you can wrench and wrench and wrench, and it's still going to turn in there. But if it's just a little smaller, that's all you need. A friend, Ed Maxwell, who used to be on the top team, and I've got some of these, a small magnet down in there, and then just to cut off a piece of metal rod that'll attach to that magnet, and you don't have to worry about it falling out. Okay, we're going to turn, the first top will be something like this. Oh, I do want to say one other thing, and probably the most important thing I've got to say all evening. Safety is critical, and not safety for you and I, but safety for the child that you may hand this top to. I'm not going to be able to read this, but a branch of the federal government decides what's safe and what's not safe as far as sizes. And basically, if your finished top is less than 1 1/4 inches or shorter than 2 1/4 inches, it's not safe for a 3-year-old child and younger to handle. So, you know, I would encourage you to keep that rule in mind no matter what you're turning, whether it's a children's toy like a top, or maybe it's a finial that goes on top of a box or anything like that. At least I would like to encourage you to at least keep that in mind. Maybe it's not going to fit your design or that sort of thing. Here would be an example of one that would not be safe. A 3-year-old child could swallow this. The result is it maybe doesn't go all the way down. It lodges in their throat, shuts off their windpipe, and you know the consequences can be pretty dire. That's a classic unsafe top.
Consumer product safety division.
I wish my glasses were a little better. It is the Consumer Product Safety Commission. And basically it just says what I said. My tops exceed that. I think the other thing is if you make a two-part top, let's say this was shorter than 2 1/4, but this exceeded the 1 1/4 and it won't go down in there. In the world I live in, probably this is going to come unglued at some point in time, and then you're going to have a piece that's shorter than it will meet the safety requirements. So, you know, I mean, it may take another inch of your dowel rod, of your 36-inch dowel rod, but it's worth the effort, I think. And just work your design out where that, in fact, will work for you. Yeah, thank you, Rick. You know, again, a critical thing. When we first started out, we didn't know, and I don't think anybody else knew, that there was a product out called super glue. And you could glue with super glue, and 10 minutes later, you could be turning your top. It's also called CA glue or a number of things like that. If I don't leave you with anything else, do not use super glue or CA glue to glue your blanks together. They now know, I guess it was about 8 or 10 years later, after so much use all across the country. It wasn't just here in Kansas City, it was everywhere they were using CA glue. About 8 to 10 years later, these professional turners started getting their products back that they had used it on. It was coming undone. And they were requesting they either replace it or fix it. And so, you know, we thought about that, and of course we changed immediately. And so now what we use, and we glue up today what we're going to turn tomorrow. But really, I think any of the type bonds, there may be others out there too, but type bond 1 is good, the original. I use the type bond 2 because there's a little water resistance with it. I'm sorry. It dries quickly, but I will glue up the blanks today that I'm going to turn tomorrow. I don't try to turn the same day. Okay. Any questions about any of that? The glue you use and the size of top you turn, if you don't take anything else home tonight, I want you to try to remember those 2 things. I can tell this top blank, for whatever reason, is not quite right. Maybe that's it. Yeah, that sounds a little better. I knew something was wrong. I just didn't have any idea what the heck it was. So you want this round, and that's round. The safest way to check for round, of course, is like that, not like I did it. Now this is nothing but spindle turning. If you can turn a spindle or a finial that's going on the top of a box or something like that, this is really no easier. It's no harder. It's a project that you'll finish a lot faster than a lot of the other spindle work. No. Well, all right. That ain't supposed to be there. I think this will work better. I would imagine this is the throwaway. I don't know. We'll see. It may be a little smaller than 1.25 inches after all my trimming work there. I sand at 180. And then I'll take a piece of that maroon or green cloth, green, and I will just kind of buff them a little bit. I'm going to be coloring them so they don't have to be perfect. Just for grins, we'll see what that diameter is. Inch and a half. So I mean, technically that would still be a safe top, but it's one for the trash can for sure. Okay. So in deciding what colors you want to use, sometimes I just think of the major universities. I figure they've already invested a lot of money in their color scheme, so I'll just use them.
What school? Yeah, mix them together and it turns purple, Phil.
Yeah. That's right. Okay. So this is a Sharpie brush tip, permanent ink, but I don't think it's a solvent based. I think it's probably water based. I know some of these others are water based, so I don't think it makes a bit of difference. The solvent based ones are just going to dry a little bit faster than the water based, I think. So there's my first move.
He turns the lathe way down in speed when he does the spiral, right?
Yeah, we're like 350, something like that. Some of you younger fellows with faster reflexes are probably going to be. So I put the color on here first. This is really just whatever you think looks good. Normally that top would be just a little bit bigger than that. I'm going to increase the speed, and on this outer ring, I'm going to put on a little texture. That's the Sorby texturing tool. Let's see. My lathe controls are over here. I keep on looking down there. All right, that looks okay. So when we first started doing these, Sean and I came up with this huge piece of plastic pipe and put a handle on it, and it would actually rest on the ways of the lathe, and you could put your colored up here, your the puff paint, yeah, and it would contain it. And I think it was Mike Erickson one day brought him this, and it was such a much better idea than what we did, but they both would work.
Didn't have that, you could wear some of that paint.
Yeah. All right, here we go. We're going to have to cut this off and back this off in order to get that up on there. Get her tip good. All right. I'm going to say probably red, huh? Maybe something like that. Huh? Perfect. So here it's just, it's difficult no matter what you do to get these on there equally spaced. But I have found over time, the easiest way to do it is to do 4 and then to come back and split the difference between those 4. Just a little squid, yeah, just a little dot there. I don't know, kind of in a hurry, so that's not going to look real good. But we'll see what happens. So now you want to turn your lathe up and turn this on. At home, before we came up with this idea, I didn't use anything. I just got the heck out of the way. And I've got a street going up this wall and halfway across the ceiling as a result of that. That's not too good at all, but it'll give you an idea.
What kind of wood is that good?
Thank you. It's birch, dowel rod, and maple here. I don't get that on you. That's really not. Yeah. Normally those spokes would not be connected back there, but anyway, that gave you an idea of one thing you can do to decorate your top. As I say, we don't use that hardly at all anymore. Not quite. Okay. It just kind of burnishes it and keeps this ink from running too much. It's not perfect, but does a pretty good job. So let's say you graduated from Texas Tech. Patrick Mahomes University, yeah. He's just redesigned their football uniforms down there. I'm not sure exactly what's up with that, but I think he bought the uniform company. He does, yes, he does. Yes. Just 1%. I'm not sure what that, not sure. You know, he seems like a genuinely nice young man. Yeah. Okay, we're going to text her. This is the latest version of the giveaway top.
I want to ask Jerry if it mattered whether you put the color on before you texture or put it on after you texture, and he said you can go either way, right?
It'll work both ways. A lot of people do that. I do it like this because it just seems like to me that it's a little more pronounced when you cut down through the paint or the ink into the wood underneath. It sticks out a little bit more, but I've seen it done both ways, and there's not much difference. Let's see. Yeah. This is a Sorby texturing tool, and somewhere around here. Oh, here it is. I've got another texturing tool made by a friend of mine who's a club member. I'm not going to name him because I don't think he really wants any more business. But if you had $100 bill, maybe. This is my Phil Royer, and you can see the Sorby is more or less in line with the shaft, and this is just the exact opposite. This actually is a great tool because you can get into places with this tool that you cannot even think about here. We'll use it on the next one. You'll get to see that. All right. This normally would take about 5 minutes, maybe, probably less. Did I mention that we have a guest that's going to be a part of the presentation this evening? Not yet. How are we on time? We're all right. We're going to turn one more that I typically would turn. It's not going to take much time. But I cut my top blanks out of a 2x2 long spindle. And no matter how long it is, eventually you get down to the end of it and you look at your finger and you look at the bandsaw blade and you remember all the things that have happened in the past. And so I say, you know, when it gets down about this thick, that's good enough. And I make this top blank with the residual. And we're going to get that tightened up there this time. It's not. I saw that. Excuse me. I thought that wasn't looking right. This was part of my presentation, but I forgot it early on, part of the glue up. But, you know, yeah, the part with the glue, the part at the very beginning of the presentation. I use the CA, not the CA, I don't use the CA, I use the tight bond. I put a streak down here. I put and fill the entire cavity here, maybe not on this one, but I make certain that that entire surface is covered, and you can just kind of pump your finger up and down and you'll see it come up and down. And then I force the two together. If it's a fit like this, you can just do it by hand. If it's a little bit tight, you can put this in your drill and you can actually push it up in there. If it's real loose, throw it away. It's of no use to you. If it's extremely tight, throw it away because you probably squeezed out most of your zoo or your glue. But that's the way I do that. Again, I think if you don't take anything else away, do not use CA glue. As tempting as it is, as quick as it is, you just don't want that. Somewhere. Ah, there we go. We've got a glued up top blank. I turn my tops, which are basically an inch and 7/8 or something like that at home, on a lathe with a 20-inch swing, a Powermatic with a 20-inch swing. It has plenty of power to do it. It's never gotten bogged down or anything. Well, again, we're just using up the residual of our blank. If you have any questions, just fire away. I kind of sense we may be running a little bit late, but we have a surprise guest. Anthony Harris is going to appear up here in a little bit. I was a member of the club when Anthony was our president, and I remember a lot of really nice things about that. But one of them was he started off each meeting by telling a joke. So I've asked him to appear up here this evening and maybe give us a little glimpse of that. What? Oh, no. Maybe, do you have a joke or do you not? You got a joke, okay. You want to tell it right now? Yeah, let's tell it right now.
Fred and George are going hunting and he's not on? Yeah. Okay, good. Good, Mike. Okay. There it is. Okay. So Fred and George are going to go out hunting, and they're out in the woods. They got shotguns, and Fred is looking a little pale, and they keep walking along. And he starts to stumble, and finally drops down, and he just lays there on the ground. And so, was it Fred that fell? George gets on the cell phone. They're still pretty close to town and everything. So he gets on the cell phone and calls 911 and says, "Hey, my buddy's falling on the ground. I think he's dead." And so the 911 person says, "Well, why don't you go over there and make sure he's, let's figure it what we're going to do, and you go over there and find out if he's really dead. Make sure he's really dead." And the guy just kind of pauses for a minute and says, "Okay." And so a little bit later, you hear this shotgun blast, and he comes back and says, "Yeah, he's dead."
So every one of our meetings, we started off with this. And it's one of my fondest memories of the club, obviously. Yes.
A lot of stuff, the tops in particular. And what makes a top spin longer, like, two pretty identical tops, but what will make one spin longer than the other one? When we had those, the battle tops and everything, I never could figure that out. Is it
Yeah.
weight?
I think there's a lot of things involved there. If it's something that you're doing with, manually with your fingers, then we're a part of that variable. The weight at the top, it's actual design. If it's close to the ground, the big part of the top is going to spin longer than if it's on up there a little bit. Yeah, I think there's just a number of things. But I think I told you. Go ahead. Believe me, and I've got my own theory about that one. You can turn them dimensionally identical. Out of the same wood, you can turn them dimensionally identical. One will work and one will not work. But I think if you get I'm going to pay more attention to this. If you get to looking at the wood itself and the graining, I think the graining, if it's further apart over on this side, the tree rings, and close together on this side, then you're starting off with a blank that's not balanced. It would be the closer together they are, the probably the heavier that wood are. And it doesn't take much. I mean, that sounds silly, but it doesn't take much for that darn thing not to work. So don't let that put you off. I turn plenty that do not invert. You just have to kind of stay with it. But this is the end of our spindle that we this may be our best stop. And while it might look a little nicer than some of these others, I'll guarantee you it will not spin as well. Which kind of argues against what I just said. I'm sorry. I have had one returned. I think you caused that though. We were turning over Deanna Rose, and these people, little kids, they come by, they take their top, go on, they have a lot of fun, somewhere else at the event. Well, I said Deanna Rose, it was over at the Conservation Center. And towards the end of the day, here this little girl comes back up with this top and she just wondered if she could exchange it. Well, it looked like it had been run over by an 18-wheeler, you know. I don't know what the heck happened to it. But I said, well, yeah, you know, they come with a warranty. All right, this is the last one. If you have any questions,
Always called me furniture kit, but very important thing. Didn't you used to furnish with leather?
probably, or this, you know, this would work. Yeah. It just kind of smooths it up a little bit. I'm going to leave this stuff up there if you want to look at it at halftime. Spin away. Just so you'll know,
It does spin.
it does spin. Yeah.
Works. All right. Well, thank you, Gary, for the. And see if you can, okay, so dowels are over here in a box. Feel free to take one if you're here tonight and make your own blanks and bring them in for show and tell. And if you can, donate some for the Santa's workshop this year. So we're going to take a little break. We'll do refreshments, as well as there are some bowl blanks back there. And if I could talk Mike into it, he's going to wander around and be Vanna White with the dollar sweepstakes